We will take care.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first of many Opto 22 webinars for the Brazilian marketplace. Today, we're going to talk about the introduction to Epic. This webinar will be a very brief webinar, but it is meant only as an introduction to one of our top products in the last 5 years. So starting with introduction to Epic, I wanted to start here with this diagram you see here. In this diagram, here's the Groov Epic. It is the centerpiece between the OT and the IT world. This webinar will detail how you only need an Epic to talk to any PLC, device, motor, sensor, and any piece of software in the cloud or in your factory. So that can be anything from groov HDMI screen to AWS Azure clouds to databases all over the world. So we're going to start and finish with this diagram, hoping that at the end of this introduction, this diagram makes a little more sense. And again, we're only going to focus on this piece here, the Epic or the Epic system. And the Epic stands for Edge Programmable Industrial Controller. But the full agenda for today is we're going to start off and introduce Control, and I'm joined here today by both Roberto Pereira and Herbert Roncolato from Control. And we were going to talk about a little bit of the history of Opto 22 and then dive into what the Epic controller is, as well as some example of case studies. So I'll start off first with who is Control, but I think who could do this best and also do it in Portuguese would be the founder and president of Control, and that's Roberto Pereira. Roberto, if you are ready, we are happy to introduce you and hear you.
Ok, thank you, René. Bom, a Control foi fundada em 1994, já temos hoje 28 anos de mercado e sempre tivemos voltados para inovações, tentar trazer ao cliente produtividade, confiabilidade e segurança, né? Já somos distribuidores da Opto 22 para o Brasil, com exclusividade, há mais de 18 anos. E com isso nós possuímos estoque, treinamento em português e suporte locais. Também devido a essa longa parceria, nós possuímos uma estreita relação, conseguimos atender o cliente rapidamente, sem custos, para que possamos tirar as dúvidas e que o nosso cliente possa ter a melhor solução da forma mais rápida, né? Temos focado muito no mercado industrial, obviamente, mas também no eólico, solar, no ferroviário, e de uns anos para cá, ingressando fortemente no mercado de IIoT. Só completando, nós estamos próximos, localizados num prédio próximo à Marginal Tietê, em São Paulo, com fácil acesso a todos que quiserem vir aqui nos visitar, conhecer os equipamentos de perto, receber um treinamento, esteja à vontade de nos contactar. Ok? Muito obrigado. René,
Thank you, Roberto. A little now about Opto 22, and skip there ahead, is we're a 48-year-old company, a company by engineers and for engineers. Here is our headquarters in Southern California, with more than 100 million I/O points to 10,000 clients globally, replacements for several DCS systems, and again, the centerpiece between OT and IT networks. Don't worry if I'm going too fast. This program will be recorded, so you can relax and simply enjoy the presentation now, and we will present it to you later with links to this documentation as well as more tools. We're a vertically integrated facility. Before this was popular, here in 1994, here in Temecula, California, we have all of Opto 22 manufacturing and design in this building. We have engineering and all of our offices here. And here's a 200,000 square foot facility where we do all of the manufacturing of the Epics that we'll talk about today, as well as Rios, G4 lines, Snap lines, etc. With Opto 22, we've always been a fan of open standards. So back in the 70s of using serial IO of using serial cards to communicate relays throughout a factory. OPC was founded in the Opto22 factory along with Microsoft and other providers. The first to put an Ethernet port on I/O systems, a cellular modem on I/O ports on I/O systems to use frequency hopping Wi-Fi, and now, of course, the epics. For this demo, we've created an online demo for anyone in the world to be able to use demo.groov.com. So let me give you an example of it here. If you go to demo.groov.com, it will give you the username and password. It's trial in Opto22. Here is a live camera view of this, like I just showed you now, of this diagram. So here we are, or you can go to demo.groov.com and you can find the windmills, the Siemens PLCs, the Rockwell PLCs, the Schneider PLCs that are connected over the internet. And let's see that example now. So this system is, this technology is 25 years old. When I was a student in college in the 1990s, you could turn on lights on the internet and view them on a camera. That's nothing new. What is new is now that I can talk to and communicate lights on and off through a Rockwell PLC, through a Siemens PLC. So now my point and clicks aren't to turn on a relay, they're to communicate to a PLC that then communicates to its I/O system. Another thing that's new now is now you can run based off of APIs. So now I can tell a windmill to turn on and off. That's 25-year-old technology. That's nothing new. What is new is now, depending on what my price per megawatt hour or price per watt hour is, I can decide to turn that turbine on and off. And that's important because of energy prices being what they are right now, with it being $150. If I make this less than 71, let's say I make this $70 and click OK. Now, once this refreshes, it's now at 70 and the windmill knows to turn on. It's what's the latest with Opto22. So we've always had these beautiful online demos, but now we are taking it one step further by with these epics, communicating with Rockwell, Siemens, Schneider, via numerous different technologies. And here is that same camera image we had of how that demo is set up. So like I said, today we're going to talk about just an introduction to the EPIC system. Next time we will talk about the Rio system, which is very similar, but a lot more, like you will see, fixed number of I/O points, still a lot of connectivity, but no built-in display, no built-in HDMI ports. We'll explain the differences in the Rio demonstration. So now to go more specifically into the EPIC. That's what this webinar is about, the Edge Programmable Industrial Controller. And so this is one example of an EPIC controller with an 8-module chassis. And this EPIC controller, it's all based off of a Linux-based system. It's a real-time controller. It has a full I/O system, every I/O you can think of, from CAN bus to RTD to thermocouple to serial modules to 4 to 20, 0 to 10s, every type of module you can think of, we have. One of the top features, and one we'll repeat several times today, is the built-in HMI. The HMI has no cost, no additional cost, no limits on tags, and no limits on users. If you have a factory, you can run the entire operation served from this device. You do not need a separate PC for that GrooView to run on. In fact, you don't even need a PC at all, because once this is installed, you can connect this to USB, to a keyboard, a mouse, to a monitor using the HDMI, and this is your operator workstation. We've also built in VPN client directly into the device. Network segmentation, we have different ports, Ethernet ports, physical Ethernet ports, port forwarding. So like in the diagram we showed before, this EPIC can be communicating through a Profibus connection to a Siemens controller and pulling that information over encrypted, VPN'd, encrypted and VPN'd back to one central location. That's something that right now you would need an industrial PC and lots of middleware. No longer. The EPIC controller can do that completely. We have a long history of manufacturing industrial hardware. So in manufacturing that industrial hardware, we have the experience to create very industrial wiring harnesses, wiring connections, anti-vibration solutions, shock resistance, hot swappable analog and discrete, so you don't have to turn the system on and off. If you get a new module or want to change a module, you just pull it out, unscrew it, pull it out, put a new one in without the system, without hindering system performance. LEDs, as you can tell by some of the LEDs that you see in the EPIC controller I here have behind me, the different status LEDs tell you if it's running, if it's out of range, if there's a problem. So you could do easy diagnostics. So behind me here, we see a 4-module rack. One that we see here in the screen, we see an 8-module rack. Industrial quad-core CPU. Like I said, it's a Linux-based OS, gigabit Ethernet, VPN, Wi-Fi connectivity, and rated -20 to positive degrees, positive 70C. So let me go here. And I see we have a question already. We will answer those as towards the end of it, but thank you for the question. We will be happy to answer it and all of them at the end of the webinar. Display options. This to me is the most, is a huge competitive advantage because with other manufacturers, you need a special touchscreen. You need an industrialized, ruggedized touchscreen with a special version of firmware. For us, all you need is an HDMI port or any device that has a web browser inside of it. Our entire HMI, like you will see here behind me, is based off of Nginx, if you know what that is. So Chrome, Firefox, Microsoft Edge, any of that can be monitored, or you simply plug in an HDMI port and you have a full HMI features. That is included with every EPIC. You do not need to purchase that. I was speaking with a client this week that was moving from Wago. They were using a Wago system using CODESYS and CODESYS Visu for their HMI. And for that, it's not as feature rich as the Opto 22 system, and they could convert their HMI over to a groov system in a third of the time that it took them to develop them with much more features now. Now you can have this screen, for example, I can have it on my phone without any changes or extra licenses, etc. So this EPIC, you can look at it as a controller plus an industrial PC plus a cybersecurity appliance, all built into one. And these are the features software-wise that the EPIC brings to the table. I think the one that's receiving the most popularity right now in Industry 4.0 is MQTT. And MQTT, we not only support it, we support it many different ways, and we support the SparkplugB standard as well. That allows you to control or organize all of your MQTT data into larger, into more organized packet structures. So we have the Groov Manage, which is our web server capabilities. You can develop real-time control strategies using PAC Control built in, or if you prefer 1131, we have CODESYS that you can run on the EPIC controller. Create, view mobile web operator interfaces. So your entire HMI created, viewed by any browser that you wish. Build and deploy IoT applications quickly. You can simply upload the full configuration and download the configuration to other items, to other EPICs. Connecting to different PLCs. We can connect directly to any Rockwell device via Ethernet or a PLC5 using DeviceNet, Siemens using Ethernet or or a Profibus connection to the old S7200s, Modbus TCP, Modbus serial to any of them. But we also, those are the easy ones, but we also communicate to Mitsubishi PLCs directly and a long host of other list of PLCs. For that reason, the most popular first-time EPIC purchase is not a replacement of an industrial system. The first EPIC purchase by anyone is usually just one EPIC, no modules, and a power supply. That's all. Because all of the Industry 4.0 features that are in the EPIC, you can now bring to any system you have. If you have a Siemens system that's running fine and you like it, but you want MQTT or a built-in database or connections to Azure, you simply put an EPIC on top to pull in all that communication, interconnect all that data just via software, and send that up to Azure. So that is the most typical way to start. So I would recommend starting that way. And if you have, as you move forward, you can simply add modules to use the IO. Now, let me see here if I can go to here, or maybe see if I can remember what this one is. So this is the groov manage for my EPIC that you will see here. And I wanted to show you this because all it is a web server. This is Google Chrome that I'm using here. So I'm opening up Groov View there. And here you see my HMI. Now let's go to the lights. And you will see a similar map like I see here. See a similar map like I see here on my device. I want to take that one step further. And on my iPhone, go to that same, I'm going to this same EPIC. And now on my iPhone, here is Groov Manage. This is no special software. This is Google Chrome. The same project is running on the EPIC, on the web browser, on my mobile device without any extra development. So that was one of the key features I wanted to show you there. So through a web browser, now I can also use Node-RED. Node-RED is fully implemented into the EPIC device. Maybe I'm an Ignition user. I have Ignition Gateway and Ignition Edge built into the EPIC. It's running there already for free for 2 hours at a time. And once you can create all of your full Ignition development built in. If you don't want it, you don't have to pay for it. If you do want it, you simply purchase a license, enter in the license, and it runs forever. The networking and security, here is where you do all of your cybersecurity features, your VPN, your account management, your TLS encryption, your VPN client is all managed here, all through a website. You don't have to learn ladder. You don't have to be a cybersecurity expert. You don't have to know a lot about IT. We have videos on, if you're like me, I don't like manuals. I don't like sitting and reading through manuals. That's not how my brain works. I can go to a YouTube video, see examples, and copy what they do on the video. And that's how Opto 22 does it. We've created a video to show you how to use Ignition. Created videos how to use Groov View, the HMI. Created videos how to use CODESYS, how to use cybersecurity features, how to upgrade the system. And it is, so it is all web-based. So continuing now, so that's a brief introduction on the EPIC, but let me show you where people are already using it. And one clear example would be in the water space. So here we have one EPIC controller serving as the HMI for this entire water system. You have two networks. In purple, you have a 900 megahertz Ethernet network that's communicating to all of these different sensors and bringing them back physically to an EPIC. That EPIC is running CODESYS because that's what the customer wanted. but we're also using cellular data to send MQTT information to a HiveMQ broker on the cloud. So to this epic, all of this looks the same because it's all over IP and it's all using Opto22 systems. So let me show you the example now of those same GrooveView screens that are included with the epic. You can see through anywhere on the network. You can see easily create your tanks, your levels of MTU or different particulates. This is the actual physical structure where they're being used. And again, a little bit more information about the diagram. You'll see in green are where the cellular modems are being used. Now, doesn't have to be a special cellular modem, just any cellular modem that supports IP, which are hundreds at this point. So CODESYS is used, and CODESYS license on the Epic controller is $0. It is included. In this case, they use it. They used IEC 6.1131.3, and they used MQTT implementation in this to send that information back to their host. So continuing, this is their HMI, a couple of other sheets of their HMI, and again, their architecture. The Epic has a lot of capability as well to intercommunicate directly into SAP systems. So many of you might have companies or have SAP in your company, or many of you know of different individuals who use SAP, but the problem is that manufacturing or their MES system is here, their ERP system, their SAP system is up here, and between the two is someone taking notes, entering into Excel, printing and entering into SAP. No one wants to automate it because it can cost millions of dollars. Well, not with Opto. With Opto, the Epic can speak directly to SAP, and Control has been present at many of these discussions with the experts that know how to intercommunicate SAP. So if you have more questions, you need just two drivers that are running inside the Epic controller to talk to SAP version 6.0 or even EHP 8. So here's a couple of examples of how easy it is for us in the Opto22 world using an Epic to intercommunicate data. If you notice here, no one cares what PLC you're using. It does not matter. This could be a Rockwell PLC that has your manufacturing. This could be Siemens, Schneider. These could be a variety of different PLCs that have this information. The Opto communicates to that PLC and then sends that information directly to the ERP system. So it's that you don't need different layers of middleware. You only need an Epic to do that intercommunication. How it's no code implementation. This, just like our PAC control, this is the configuration of how you program, of how you're doing your SAP commands in order to move data from the Epic controller into the SAP space. And here's another example of that. Finally, the last case study we'll talk about is for solar power plants. And this is very popular all over the world because many have installed power plants, whether this, I believe, is a 3 megawatt facility in Chile, but there are many others all over the world on rooftops, all over, where their choice is to purchase a new electrical system that's $250,000 or $1 million that has intelligence, or what they do is they add an Epic to that system and use, in this case, in Chile, they use our PAC control system and our HMI. Both of these softwares are free. They are included with the Epic controller. You can download PAC control for free on our website, and you can also download groovView that runs for 2 hours at a time. So you can develop and create your own groovView. If you have your own Modbus system, GrooveU speaks Modbus also. So you don't even need Opto22 hardware. You have an HMI here that can go and communicate to those Modbus devices. The project started years before the EPIC was built, but these were some of the original cabinets of the Opto22 modules and different CPUs. But then they quickly, once the EPICs only came out in 2018, so only 4 years ago officially. And now they've migrated to those systems. So now the EPIC, this is one of the EPICs being used at the main location and at the separate and at the different electrical stations, pulling in data. What data are they pulling in? Well, because of the EPIC, they pull in information like tracker tilting, Modbus TCP and DNP information, more Modbus TCP information, Modbus RTU information, PT1000s from RTDs, 4 to 20 from wind sensors, Modbus TCP from the different inverters. Just making the upgrade for the inverter here would cost much more than the Opto22 system to integrate that data. And now let's look at some of the screens. The biggest value that the EPIC brings, besides interconnecting all of your PLCs and computers and software, is the visualization that is included. Now, these are real visualizations from these projects, from these millions of megawatts projects, of where you see angles of the solar trackers, voltages, currents, kilowatt hours, as well as other environmental aspects, such as, for example, radiation, temperatures, and different features. So that's some screens. Here's a zoom in of the screen so you can see the data that is available there. And create it one time, and that's on the EPIC, on a browser, or on any mobile phone with a browser. So where does the EPIC play in the space of the ISA 95 industrial edge architecture? We say it's edge. And we say it's edge. How edge has been defined before EPIC is edge was this piece of middleware that was communicating between business applications and MQTT brokers and different RTUs and intelligent PLCs. Well, where the EPIC fits in this model, from equipment to sensors to SCADA to cloud, is it takes up, here's where the cost savings is that you only need an EPIC now. All this is a plastic box with a power supply and a cellular modem. The rest is just the EPIC, like we talked about. So you can talk directly to your industrial equipment, your vibration sensors, your any sensor, heart sensors, and now directly to the cloud or your ERP. So you just need one device to do it. You don't even need a firewall because the firewall is built in. You don't need an account manager. It's built in. HMI, it's built in. All of it is built in now through the EPIC. And here are a couple of other examples of projects. These are specifically in sugar mills in Kenya. So sugar canes and sugar mills. So you see an old system that was running, now replaced with an EPIC system, and how easy that is to do, and even convert the screens of the old system and now using it with no additional charge on a GrooveU screen. And now this, like I said, this can be on any device without limit of devices, without limits of tags. Here's another example of a sugar refinery system of where in the same cabinet, we were able to replace it with the EPIC with all of our IO cards to do a full replacement. Here's a picture of the old screen and now a picture of the new screen. Here's another sugar mill as well. This looks like a Yokogawa system of where they couldn't find replacement parts. So slowly they transferred the entire system over to EPIC. And that again gives them a chance to change the entire Yokogawa HMI they had before with an Opto 22. So now these diagrams make a little more sense. You see where what exists now are these PLCs and the software running in different factories. What the EPIC is that intercommunication layer to now, for any of those factories to immediately go to Industry 4.0, either via MQTT, or I haven't even spoken about, all of them have an OPCUA driver built in. So any OPC client can talk directly to an EPIC to a device. So it is that centerpiece, that upgrade piece to take any factory to Industry 4.0 immediately. And the main reason is because of all the software. Here's the EPIC controller, all the software that's there. You saw me use Groove Manage to enter in and see the different features. We talked a little bit about PAC Control, but this can also be CODESYS to do real-time control. GrooveView, the HMI that we spoke of. We didn't even get a chance to speak about Node-RED, but this is how you would do communication to DNP, BACnet, also to Azure directly, emails to even WhatsApp communications, and also, of course, to Ignition. So all of the different devices, you have different ways of communicating to all of them. All of the different software, you can use REST APIs, MQTT brokers, or just browsers to get that data out. It's really through the software we've been able to do that. So finalizing, what is an EPIC? It's an edge programmable industrial controller. And now we started with this diagram. We can finish this with this diagram. Here it is. The EPIC is the centerpiece between all of those OT systems that already exist, and especially all of these cloud applications, all of these analytical, all of these artificial intelligence packages. We have several examples showing how they talk to an EPIC that's talking to the entire OT system. So for that, we can happy to give you more examples for the next webinars coming up. So we're going to wrap it up there and start the question and answer portion of this webinar now. Excuse me. So here are contact informations for both Roberto and Herbert of Control. Please reach out to them directly, or also you'll be receiving an email with a link to the recording of this webinar today with more information and links. So let's get to any questions that are available now. So we will do that. Let me stop sharing my screen. I'll stop sharing my screen in a moment to get people to write that down if they need it. So the first question was, does the EPIC have separated kernels? Does the controller memory area, is it separated from the HMI area? I think it says in parentheses, critical for OT applications. So in that, the answer for that is actually, oops, I deleted it, is actually no. It is one complete kernel for everything. And I'll give you a reason why. Because for example, there's a manufacturer of Industry 4.0 PLCs that has different structures. The problem with that is when you're trying to use, let's say, MQTT to AWS, what we have found is with our competition doing it in different sections, if I'm understanding your question right, is that now you need to keep different versions of different kernels on the same device. So it's the Windows problem, what I call the Windows problem. So with Windows, you're operating and then one day your PC is not working. And it's because you need to update a driver on a video card, or you need to update a driver, given an update, for example. Excuse me. But with the Opto 22 system, we don't give you the option to break it down into different kernels. What we do is we test the entire operating system, everything. So the Node-RED, the HMI, the control application, the Ignition, the OPC server. All of it is in one kernel, in one package. And why is that? Because that way we know for sure if someone says, I have a problem with the OPCUA server, with the OPCUA server and the HMI, we can ask them, what version do you have? And it's only one version they need to tell us, 3.4.1. We immediately know, okay, it should work fine there. Let's try something else to get you working. When you do separate kernels, and many manufacturers do this, they ask you, okay, well, they'll say, my OPC isn't working. They say, okay, what version of this do you have? What version of that are you running? What version of this did you buy? And to find the right combination of those, for several of those, there's usually one guy somewhere in Germany that knows what the right combination of versions are for it to work properly. So we avoid all of that. One kernel for everything, and we well document everything that functions and how it functions together. So the next question I have here is about MQTT brokers. What MQTT brokers that we support? Have MQTT brokers that we support two. We support both MQTT strings broker and MQTT SparkplugB broker, both in a simultaneous fashion. And how that helps is because you can have one MQTT broker for your end user, as well as having another MQTT broker for your let's say your maintenance use. So it looks like we are getting to our last question here. Sure that getting the application on the cloud for accessing via mobile is great. What about security? The epic won't be exposed to the internet. That is a great answer. And let me see if I can find a good diagram that will answer that. I'm sure I have it here somewhere. Here we go. Here's what will answer it. So am I sharing my screen? So with that, this is the cybersecurity screen. There are billion-dollar companies, billion-dollar multinationals that rely on Opto 22 for our cybersecurity function. And they trust us and they validated us and they have signed off and accepted and said, yes, Opto, you have the cybersecurity tools we need. These are the four most popular cybersecurity tools to ensure that security. So that security is first of all is the firewall that we talked about, user authentication, TLS encryption, VPN. The firewall allows the epic to close down completely. So there is no way for you to communicate to it, meaning that you can configure the epic to be an outbound only communicator. And that capability with these four features has been enough for government organizations, billion-dollar pharmaceutical organizations, billion-dollar entertainment companies to purchase the epic because of VPN encryption, firewall, and user authentication. And with the use of MQTT and a third-party broker, doesn't matter if on the cloud or on premises, because all that communication is going to the cloud, no hacker here or anywhere can know once they talk to the cloud where that communication is coming from. So the cloud almost serves as a third-party place for none of that to happen, for none of that, for you to be able to reach or even know where that system is physically. So let me see here. We have one more question, and after this question, we're going to end the webinar. As an edge device, is it possible to deploy new apps to the epic? Let's say third-party app using Docker containers, or just Opto 22 apps is able to be installed on. This is a great question. The answer is Docker is coming. Docker is simply not here yet. That is our plan to put it into the system. However, there's so many other features like improvements to the HMI, MQTT features, OPC features that are just higher priority. It will be coming, and that is our are the direction that we are headed, just not there at this moment. Well, unless in case of, let's see if this one's a fast one, we'll do this with 2. In case of broken a Linux kernel, do we lose the controller functionality since there's no, and the controller kernel? In the case of the broken on Linux, I don't understand the question very well for it. Oh, I see what you're saying. In that case, I think we're talking about separation of file systems and kernels. So we do have a shell access for you to be able to enter into the Linux device that is completely, that can intermingle with the controller kernel. But if you send me that question via email, I'll be sure to answer it in the YouTube recording. So with that, I'd like to end this webinar. And Roberto, do you have any closing words you'd like to share with us before we have our next webinar sometime here in the next few weeks?
Ok, thank you, René. Bom, quero agradecer então a todos pela presença e como vocês viram, o Groov Epic é um equipamento extremamente versátil que tem a possibilidade de utilização em praticamente qualquer área e que permite a conexão dos sistemas de OT, né, os sistemas já existentes, com toda a nova tecnologia de IoT do mercado. Então, mais uma vez, agradeço e estamos à disposição caso vocês queiram ver uma apresentação mais específica ou conversar sobre algum assunto relacionado a isso. Ok? Muito obrigado. Obrigado. Thank you, René.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Roberto. Thanks, Herbert. And thank you, everyone, for attending this first intro to Epic webinar for Brazil. Have a great day.